Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Tara. I garden here at Wild Bird Farm. We are in Zone 5 in central Iowa. Today we're going to be starting Celosia or Celosia, however you pronounce it. Now we are at the tail end of March and I feel that I am a couple weeks late in getting this started. Our last expected frost date is May 1. Last year, we didn't have a frost through the month of April. So towards that last week in April last year, I was starting to put some celosia seeds in the ground. Now, last year was the first time I didn't start any from seed in cell containers. I put everything outside in the ground, just dropped the seeds in the rows. While they germinated and grew very well, they were a little bit behind. I didn't have any celosia to cut really until probably the end of July last year, and really seeing a lot of it in August and September. In past years, when I had started it inside under lights, I was able to harvest probably a full 3 or 4 weeks sooner than that. So this year I decided I'm going to do a little bit of both. We are going to be starting 4 types of celosia today, but then I have saved some seed from last year. And once our soil really warms in May, I'm going to sprinkle some directly on the ground again and do some direct sowing as well. So first off, let's talk about the varieties I'm growing, and then we're going to jump right into it. So we have 3 varieties we're going to start together today. I did start some of the flamingo feather last week, and I did that because in past years I felt like it was slower to germinate, but I put my 72 cell tray on a heat mat, and I'll post some video here, but it is popping up great. I would say within 5 to 7 days, a lot of this is showing. So I would definitely recommend, if you have a heat mat or a warmer spot in your home, maybe put your celosia cells on there. I think that's going to help with germination. So I plan to do that with the rest of them. Now I am mostly using 72 cell trays. I do have one 128 cell tray that I'm going to use for one of the varieties just because I'm running out of 72 cell size. So we have the flamingo feather started indoors, and then I have 2 Celway varieties. The Celway terracotta I grew last year, and I just adored this. It's a color that goes with a lot of different color palettes. I thought the plumes were nice. They're a really nice accent flower. They really help fill out a bouquet. So we're going to be starting some pelleted seeds of these. I got these in 100 seed counts, and I will probably put the whole thing in this 72 cell tray. And then of that same Celway variety, I got orange, and I haven't grown orange before, but I was looking for a little bit brighter color. The terracotta is pretty muted. It's a muted peachy pink, I guess I would call it. Leans a little bit orange, but I'm hoping the orange is a little bit brighter, and that way I kind of have some different options to vary my bouquets. And then the last one that I think we'll put in the 128 cell trays is the Pampas Plume. Now, my very first year growing celosia, I got this from a seller that I think had mixed up their seed. And I got bedding variety Pampas Plume, and it was probably only 12 to 18 inches in the field, no matter how much I was cutting those tops off to get it to grow. So this is actually really my first round with using the Pampas Plume to see how it grows. So I'm not sure how tall it'll be. I'm hoping it's at least 3 feet for me. So we're going to sow some of this today. This is not pelleted. There's a million seeds in this little packet. So we're going to have to be a little bit careful how we plant those out. I think that covers most of it. Now I have pre-moistened seed starting mix. I DIY'd my own seed starting mix this year. I have a video on that if you're interested in checking that out. For celosia, they are very tiny seeds and they barely need to be covered. So my plan is to just put them on the top of the dampened soil, and then I'm going to use vermiculite on top and mist that in. That's going to hold moisture in, that's going to give it good contact with the soil, but it's not going to bury those seeds too deep so they have trouble germinating. All right, let's get started. I forgot to make appropriate plant tags and I don't have any out here. So when I go into the house, I will write myself a proper tag. But for now, we're just going to put this. Now I will, once I get these all sewed, I will put a clear dome over top. They're going to go in my house, in my grow room, the room that I'm using. It's going to stay about 67 to 70 some degrees in there. But as I mentioned, I will put these on a heat mat to kind of encourage some quick germination. And then when they get large enough, they'll be brought out here to harden off. There are our pelleted seeds. Now this is going to make it a lot easier, hopefully, as I say that, to get one per cell here. And I think I'll shoot for one per cell. I'll have a few extra seeds, so I'll go back through and maybe double up in a few of them. Now, since these are small seeds, these would be a good contender, again, for the toothpick method. If you enjoy doing that, you get the end of a toothpick wet, and then you pick up a single seed. And whether you are doing soil blocks or cells like I am, or maybe you're starting with an open flat, that's a pretty easy way to start your seeds so you're not putting too many in a cell. Now, when I direct sow them outside, I am sowing pretty heavily, thinking that we have birds and other things that might eat some, and wind, rain, all the things that could take your germination rate down. So I like to save seeds to direct sow, especially when they're small seeds. So I'm not having to buy a huge amount if I'm wanting to direct sow. But I think when I get pelleted seeds, I generally will start them indoors like we're doing now. But then if I save my own seed, it's easy enough for me to kind of overseed out in the garden. And I had great luck with germination. I'll see if I can look back at any old videos and get some pictures of the celosia kind of in the height of the summer. So I have this sowed. I'm going to go through, I usually just go around the edges if I just have a few seeds left and drop in a second seed. And that way I can move things around if we have a couple of cells that don't germinate. Now, as we've talked about before, I accidentally bought coarse vermiculite. So if you are in the market for vermiculite, definitely buy fine. But this just helps control the moisture on the top of the cells, and it's especially handy for seeds that are very, very small to begin with, that you don't want to bury in the soil, that they need to kind of sit on top of the soil. This is going to kind of help keep them moist. And when you have pelleted seeds like we're doing right now, it's really important to get some moisture on those to break down that yellow coat that we saw as we were planting. So I'm going to do a lightish hand on this. Again, I would definitely get fine when you go to get your vermiculite. All right, we are going to give it a quick spray here with my pump sprayer. Whoops, that's too aggressive for the babies. And this is just to wet down the vermiculite. And then we'll put a clear dome on top, and I would expect within about 7 days, I'm going to see hopefully a lot of germination in this tray. Next up is the Celway orange, and we are going to handle this tray the exact same way. And then the last we're going to do today is the Pampas Plume, and these are not pelleted, so I'm going to do my best not to overload these cells. Okay, I made pretty quick work of that. We're just going to spray this last cell tray quick and add its plastic top. Now, as I mentioned, these will go in the house, which the room stays about 67 to 70-ish degrees. I'm going to put these on a heat mat because I really think that helped last time. And we'll just see how well these germinate. Now, I will mention the celosia that I started today, these are plume varieties. So they kind of remind me a little bit feathery. They're mostly vertical, and they can look like plumes or feathers. Now, there is another type of celosia, and it is more like the big brain, or I'm not sure, I can't even think of what they call it. But they're a little bit more of a focal flower. They usually grow a little bit bigger. I have grown a couple varieties of those before. I didn't care for them quite as much. For me, at least, they weren't nearly as prolific. I know some of those varieties are a one and done, so you kind of like stock for the most part. You'd grow it for a single stem, and when you cut it down, it's not going to reproduce. These varieties that I have are going to keep pumping out those feathery, plumy blooms all season once they get going. And I really find them very valuable to have in the garden. If you have any questions about getting your celosia started or how to harden it off, how to plant it out, please drop those below. I'm happy to answer it. Now, one thing I will say is sometimes when I plant my celosia out, it tends to get a bit stressed, and it shows you that it's stressed by putting up these tiny little bloom spikes. Like the plant's probably this tall, and then it gives you a little spike of color up there. Definitely not something you can really use, maybe if you were doing boutonnieres or something. So I just continue to pinch those little suckers off until they get some volume. So you might have a little plant like this, you might have to pinch it once and then it's going to branch, and you might have 4 or 5 of those. So then I go through and I pinch it again. You might have to do that a couple times, especially if they're a little bit stressed getting planted out, or maybe they aren't having the exact fertilizer and moisture that they want. But they will push through and they will get to be big and bushy. Every year I look at those little things and I think, oh no, this is the year I'm not going to have celosia. But they bounce back. They love the heat of the summer. That's when they want to grow. So just keep pinching them back and giving them just a little bit of fertilizer, organic if you can. Water them, but not too much. They don't need a ton of water, and they will give you huge, big, bushy plants. All right, until next time, please like and subscribe. And if you would share this with a friend, I would be grateful. I am nearing 3,000 subscribers. And once I hit that, we're going to have a giveaway or two. So I would appreciate if you shared my content. Until next time.